So we're here at Small Cells World Summit with Steve Blythe from Orange. Steve, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So to begin with, I know that in France there's the 700 megahertz spectrum auction coming later this year. Why is 700 megahertz so important to operators?
So in general, low frequency spectrum is extremely valuable to mobile operators. And some of those reasons are fairly obvious. It's a low frequency. It propagates further, fewer network base stations, and therefore lower capex. So going forwards, we need to expand our low frequency portfolio to give us sufficient capacity in the areas where it serves. So generally that would be the rural environment, which we are trying to develop the services within that type of space to try and break down the digital divide. But the other key area where that spectrum is important is providing indoor coverage from outside, and currently we use for 4G, for instance, the 800 megahertz band. But as we get more and more customers using services indoors, more data, higher bandwidths, then we need to supplement that capacity. And this is really where 700 megahertz comes in. It adds that additional capacity to these hard to reach areas.
And people have talked about the importance of harmonisation with spectrum. I mean, do you feel the release of spectrum is harmonised enough, or can more be done in this area?
So harmonisation is a key element to our spectrum strategy in general, and it is for all mobile operators. We're a capital intensive business. We need to derive economies of scale in whatever we do, and the same applies to spectrum. We need to deliver similar spectrum solutions in each of the countries we operate to maximise those scale economies. So for us, having access to similar spectrum bands in each of the countries we operate at a similar time is pretty key, so that we can buy the same infrastructure, the same set of devices, and maximise the volumes of both of those to deliver overall commercial benefits that we can then translate into the services we offer our customers. We, historically have seen problems whereby even in Europe we've seen different member states releasing spectrum bands, similar spectrum bands at different periods. If you take the 800 megahertz spectrum band as an example, in Germany they released it 5 years ago. In other countries it's still not in play. So it's something we need to manage. And if it can be overcome by more integrated policies at the European level, then so much the better for us, really.
And do you feel, there have been various initiatives from the European Commission to try and help the telecom operators? Do you think they're doing enough? Is there more they could do in this area?
To be honest with you, I think there is more that can be done there, and more that can be done with the industry as well. So we've had a number of initiatives at the European level. We've got the digital single market, we've got the telecom single market, both of which now don't really touch on spectrum issues. For whatever reason, they've been taken out of scope. And I think that is failing. I think the more that we can coordinate activities relating to spectrum on a member state basis, so much the better. If we can ensure that spectrum licenses as long as possible, 20 to 25 years being the norm, if we can ensure that new spectrum becomes available in similar timescales, then we as mobile operators will see the benefit, and ultimately the end consumer will see the benefit, because the reason we need spectrum is to deliver these enhanced services to support the growth in mobile broadband, which is what the customer wants. So the more coordinated we can be, I think the more that Europe can influence the debate in this area, then so much the better.
And obviously telecom operators are not the only people scrabbling for the spectrum. It's quite a precious resource.
Sure.
Why should mobile operators get it above other industries? Why is it so critical for you to get your hands on it?
So obviously spectrum is a scarce resource, and as you say, there are many different services that need spectrum. Mobile broadband being one of those. But what we do is we look at what our long-term requirements are. We're looking at the growth in mobile broadband and what that means in terms of additional spectrum we need. Equally, I'm sure other providers of services, broadcasters, the private mobile radio guys are doing exactly the same thing. So what we would suggest is that there has to be a balance struck. We're not saying that we should have all the spectrum and no one else should have it, far from it. But we think that there needs to be a proper debate about where future spectrum should be allocated. We've done a number of studies to try and demonstrate the economic benefits that we think additional spectrum from mobile broadband can give our customers and economies in general, and equally other service providers like broadcasters have done the same. So what we would like is a reasoned debate about this and see where the line can be drawn as to future spectrum allocations. It is obviously critical for our business. It's quite a difficult environment with the level of competition in markets now. We're not afraid of that. That's something that should always be present. But to make sure that we're competitive, that we can deliver the services customers want, then we need to be able to argue our case as to why we need that spectrum and what it can deliver to our customers.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.